Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa. I just finished filming part 1 of block 22. I'm just going to jump straight into filming the second half of this block. I was so unhappy with the original honeycomb seams that I stitched that I really wanted to redo them. So this video is going to be 2 seams. We're going to be doing a variation of honeycomb stitch using Cretan stitch, and then we're going to be doing another version of honeycomb, but sometimes it looks more like chicken wire, and so I hope we'll have fun with that one. Let's go ahead and get started. In my frame, I have this block that we've been working on, and we have 2 areas. We're going to fill this area, and you can sort of see the shadow of what I stitched before. Everything was dramatically uneven on that. I was so unhappy with it that I ripped it all out and we're redoing it because I want to show you how to get the measurements right to get the even honeycomb pattern and not the oblong version or the skewed version that doesn't work very well. As we do this chicken wire one, we may actually do 2 versions of that in this section. Like with this seam, I don't want to make my marks with this in the frame. So I'm actually going to take it out of the stand. I'm going to set that aside. And I still have too much give in this. And when you're looking to get something beautifully even, it helps to have it laying flat. And sometimes I just don't take the time to do that. But I really would like to do that on this block because otherwise it's too easy to get this one uneven. When you're crazy quilting, you don't normally think of needing to get out the rulers, a pencil, a pen, and a template. But it can make a difference when you're doing hexagons. Hexagons are supposed to be equal on each side. On this piece of paper, I have drawn a couple of hexagons. I'm going to draw this one big because I want you to see what I'm measuring. And then this is the size that I actually want to stitch. So let me just write that over here. It's a 3/8 inch hexagon. This is actually a 1 inch hexagon. Now when you're measuring, use the most accurate ruler that you can. And hexagons are measured from side to side. Don't measure from the end because that's where errors happen. So you want to measure somewhere in the middle of your ruler. Use your lines to line up, and you can see that's 1 inch all the way across there. And this little one should be 3/8 of an inch. So there's 1, 2, 3. So 3/8 of an inch. Hexagons are, unlike our template here, are not sitting this direction for us. As stitchers, it's sitting this way. And that's why I drew a line up and down so that I could see. We don't use this 1 inch measurement except for making marks going across the seam. What I want to know is if I'm going to stitch a hexagon with a Cretan stitch, we're not going to stitch all the way down here. We're going to actually be stitching here. We're going to go up, over, and we're going to come up. And then we're going to come over and down. And then the next one will go out this direction. So we have a little catch there. And on the next row, we're going to stitch this over here and down, and then this up and down. So our stitch on the sides needs to be half the length of the side of the hexagon. We need to know the distance from here to the center to there. On this one, because it's a 1 inch hexagon, that's really easy because we know that across from flat side to flat side is 1 inch. So each half of that is half an inch. Now we are almost never going to be stitching hexagons that big on a crazy quilt project. We're usually stitching much smaller so that you have to do a little math to figure it out. Half of 3/8 is actually 3/16 of an inch. And so our measurement from here to here to here, and I don't have that drawn in exactly, is 3/16 of an inch. We also want to measure this side. On the 1 inch hexagon, it works out to 9/16. So let's mark that, 9/16 of an inch. But we need half of that. Divide 9 in half, and it's 4.5. So we're going to measure that in 16ths of an inch because we want half of that distance. So we're just measuring this number. We're still staying in our 16th inch measurement. Again, don't line it up on the end because that usually is never quite accurate. We're lining up in the middle here, and we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And so there is that distance, and that should be that distance here. Again, line up somewhere in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And then it should be another half, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're right on. So we're coming up right in there. So we know this measurement on our 1 inch one is going to be 4.5/16 of an inch. We now need to know that on our 3/8 of an inch hexagon. That's going to be important because this is the number that's actually how close your lines need to be, because that number there should be the same number as this one here. That should work out to be about the same. Now, I could be wrong on that, but when I've done this in the past, it seems to be what it works out to be. So if I'm lined up on there, yeah, see, we're right in that area here. It gets us where we need to be, I think. 3/8 of an inch hexagon. Let's measure those sides. So again, I'm looking for the most accurate ruler I have. And on this one, don't count the first one, so count 1, 2, 3. We're at 3.5/16. And so we need half of that measurement, which works out to 1.75/16. I probably can't measure that because, I mean, we've got 16ths of an inch on here. We're going to turn that into 1.5/16 just because I can measure that. I can see in my 16th inch mark, which is the smallest one, where the half is, and we'll call that good. So this is one where you want to be super accurate in your measurements. And when I stitched this block the first time, I was not at all accurate. My lines got way off, and I had these hexagons that ended up with legs that were too long. And so when I came in the next go round, I was in the wrong spot, and I got these oblong ones. And by having marked it out this way, we know that they're going to be nice and even. As I'm marking this seam here, I'm realizing that through the ruler I can't even see where that seam is, so I am going to draw a line along that seam. I want to be able to see that clearly. I also am having a hard time seeing where my seam allowances are down here, so I'm just marking that as well, just so that I can see. I'm going to keep my paper handy where we have our measurements because that's what I'm going to reference. This is one of those where I like having the one with the line that goes across because I can pick a spot and draw my reference line that goes across that I'm going to make marks at. And I know that it's going to be straight, so I can just line up this line straight on that and make my reference line going across. Might just make that a little longer because we're going to come to this side. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. I just needed a little longer. I'm not thinking about the marks going across yet. I'm only thinking about the marks going top to bottom on that seam. I can see the contrast on this one better on this block, so I'm going to use that. And I'm going to press it down as close as I can get to my line that I just drew. We're going 1.5/16. So this top mark is going to be just my little leg that comes over, so it's going to be 1.5 there. We've got a mark here, 1.5. We're marking there. We're at the half here. And you can see how much fatter this is than the pencil. And so that's one of the reasons it's a lot harder to mark with these. To do this many rows, I needed 10 lines to do 2 rows of honeycomb. So how many do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm right there. So let's go ahead and go down to this one. My bigger mark is lined up on the seam. I'm going to go up 1.5. Now I'm going to come down 1.5. Now we're at the 1 mark. Now at the half mark. At the on mark, halfway. On mark, halfway. On mark. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. Okay, so now I can take and mark this going across, and I'm going to just mark on my dots. They're just to the side. Now we already marked that seam once, but I'm going to mark it again. And I do want to mark out into my seam area. Don't want to stop where my line is. And we can see already how much more even these lines are. I'm so much happier with this already. Just that simple change made all the difference. Just doing the math ahead of time and really figuring out what it was that I needed. Now my biggest concern on this one is how long will it take me to do the seam. This is the air erasable pen. And are my marks going to last long enough? Okay, so we have it going across. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this one. And so we decided that the length of that is 3/16. We're going to start here. There's 1, there's 3, and we're just going to keep going across. And once I get that first row in, I know I don't need to stitch to every dot, and so I should be good. I'm just marking every third mark here. I'm going to go ahead and mark into my seam allowance. And I'm just running that right along that seam here. I can actually look at this and think how far down, if I made that mark, I need this mark here. So I can skip a line and come down and do the same thing. And I'm going to just move it over slightly so that I'm making sure I've got that accurate mark. So we've got a mark there. And now we're running there. Okay, now I have enough lines in that I can just do my grid. And it's going to be slightly bigger than my marks, and that's fine. And there's going to be some variation in it. That's just because we're drawing it out by hand, and I'm not going to worry about it. We're just going to let it go, and that gets us out there. I'm ready to stitch. So let me get this on the frame as quickly as I can. I don't want my marks to fade. I need to be able to see those. So if you're concerned about that, use the blue marker, which will last until you get it wet. For this one, remember, our top leg is going to actually be here. So we need to start our diagonal down here and the other leg comes from up here. We may have to come in and fill in a straight right over here. We're going to start, and we're going to come up to this top dot, and we're going to come down, straight down here to that line. So this is making that top leg. Now we're going to come down, not to this one, but to here. Sorry, getting that all tangled up here. Now again, I can always hold that up and make sure we're coming up just on the inside of it to keep it nice and perpendicular. And this should go pretty quickly now that we really know where we're at and what we're doing. This is a pretty shallow Cretan stitch when we're doing this way. And we're just going to stitch row after row of it. Again, I can pull it up, see where I need to come up on that line up above where I went down. Now we're coming up to this top line. So this is our foundation line, and that's going to be really important because our lines below are already starting to fade just a little bit. So I want to make sure I get this one in while it's still visible. So down on the top. Same thing we've been doing. We've done a lot of this. There's that line. So when you're working with that purple disappearing ink, it works better on a non-humid day and with dry hands. And we're going to just go down. And I think this is going to make really nice sized little hexagons here. It's a lot of lines for a fairly small pattern, but it's going to make a difference in how it looks. And this one I got to watch. I don't want to be on that other line that was my kind of original mark line. So the size that you decide you want to stitch these, I mean, you can vary it so much. And we just sort of simplified this one with our stitching. I'm going to go ahead and finish this one off even though we're out in our seam allowance. We're just close enough here. I'll just go ahead and finish it off. I'll pull it down and catch it and knot it on the back. Like I talked about in the previous video with this stitch, I want to knot it and I want to keep working in the same direction, because when I go the other direction it changes the tension of it and I'm never as happy with how it looks. I need to get this little vertical in here or our pattern will not be complete with that. So I'm putting that in there. Now on this one I'm going to put in just a teeny tiny catch stitch right here. So this is my next line down. And I'm going to come up where I went down. I may have this backwards here. We'll try it here. I just needed to catch that. Now we're going to go down up here. Now we should be back in our normal pattern. So we're going to hold that down and come up. And now we're going to go down and meet that one that comes down. So we're just ignoring all the marks in the center. And now we're going to come up. This is the next line down. And I'm looking at that. Am I on the right line? I need to be here. I need to be there. I had to catch that one because I would have come down too far. So now our diagonal will be in this next space, so we need the end of the leg down here. There. See, now we're on the pattern. So there. So pay attention to where those lines are. We're coming down one line and coming up straight below. Now we're coming to the next line over, and not to the next one down, but to two down. And we're going to hold that up vertical and come up one line. Now go down at the tip where we went down on the row above. I can hold it down vertical, come up on the line just below that. And now we're going to come down, not here, but we're going to go down one more and up here. Up at the one we went down on and come up. One line below, not two. Now we're going to go down two lines below and up one line. So the in-between mark. And see how nice and even those are turning out this time? What a difference that makes. Having measured that out, taken the time to do the math, measuring it out, and making it work. So don't be scared of it. Now, it's probably not mathematically absolutely perfect, but for our stitching purposes, it's working out just fine. So down at the tip of the one row above. So we're always connecting these. Come up one row below. Whoops, that's a little far down. There we go. Now over one line and down two, and come up one on the same line. Now we're going to go over one line and up two, and come down one. We're right on the seam there. All right, and so this one I'm just going to come out into my seam allowance and finish off. To finish this seam off, we're going to do one more row of hexagons, but I actually only need one more row of stitching. So let me make my knot and we'll come back and do that. So we're going to come back over here. Now we're getting a little wider here, so I'm thinking on this row, that's going to be our down. We're going to be over about here. So I'm going to go ahead and just pretend we've stitched that. We're going over one line, down two, and coming back one. Over one, up two, come up one below. Now we're going to go over one, down two, come up one on the same one, down at the tip of that one above, which is up two over one. Now we're coming down one. Now over one, down two, hold it up, come up one line, down on the one we went down before, come down one line, and then over one, down two, come up one, and our lines are lasting just long enough which is perfect. I'm really happy with how this one is turning out with those nice, even little hexagons. So much nicer than the seam I had stitched before, so we'll compare that here before the end. I do have photos of it, so I will put that in here so we can compare the two, and you'll see what a difference it makes to take the time to do the math and make it happen correctly. So over one line and down two, then come back up one. That makes that little leg to the bottom of the last one on top, down one, down two, and over one and up one. Hope all my little comments are helpful. And then down one line right below. Now we're over one line from the last line we were stitching on, and we're coming up one from where we went down. And now we're going to go ahead and finish that off out here. So where are we at here? I didn't make the coming down one. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to just catch that in. And I'm doing that because we're right in here where the seam is, and I just would rather it look like it continues should I need that. And that seam is done, and we've got beautiful even hexagons, and I'm so happy with it, and I am so glad that I took the time to redo this one. Let me make a knot on the back, and then we're going to move over here and do a slightly larger one with a different pattern. For this next seam, we're actually going to do this one as a filling stitch. And this is very similar to the other hexagon pattern that we did, but instead of stitching little half legs in here, we're going to stitch full legs. Now I took the time to do the math. We're going to do a little bit bigger ones here. We're going to use 1/2 inch hexagons, which means from flat side to flat side is a 1/2 inch. And so our halfway is 1/4 inch. We need the 1/8 inch mark because from here to here, this line here, is roughly 1/8 inch. Now again, mathematically it may not be exactly that. For our purposes for stitching, it's close enough. Now as we look at this seam, you'll again see how curved that is. Now I have to think, do I want to stitch over that seam? Because it's pretty crooked, you can see that there. Or do I want to just stitch below that? I'm having trouble seeing my seam line, so I'm just going to mark out there where we are. I can see it okay in the bottom, but I'm having trouble there. I'm just going to mark that line across the top because there is definitely a little gap in there. Is that a right angle? It is not. Okay, ignore that. Let's go ahead and mark it up here and use this top line, and we're going to ignore that one. This is a nice straight seam here, so we're going to just line up with that. We're going to make our marks coming down this seam, and again I'm going to try and line it up. We're just going to go those 1/8 inch intervals. I'm just going to keep marking those even though we are not going to need all of those. We're just going to mark that all the way down because we're going to be coming all the way down this whole piece. We're just going to cover this one. I'm going to line that up on my line, and I'm just going to mark that, and I am going to be out in my seam allowance out here. We're just going to mark that way out there and make our lines going across. And just going to try and be careful and precise as much as we can. Again, I'm not making these super dark, and I know that we're going to be skipping the ones in the middle, but I don't want to have to take the time right now to figure out which one that is and risk messing up my measurements. So I'm doing it so I can see both of my marks all the way down. We're probably going to need another line down here. I'm just going to eyeball a couple of these down here. So now we have that. Here's my seam right there. And now we're going to come across, and on this one, this is where we're going to be 1/4 of an inch. We're going to go ahead and mark from that. We're going to have our first mark here, and we're going to mark 1/4 of an inch all the way across. That's based on those same measurements like we did with the previous one. I'm going to come down, and we're just going to make those marks down here somewhere. Way out past where we probably need to have it, but I'd rather have it than not. And now we're going to make those cross lines. So we have the same kind of grid that we had for the other one. This is not going to need to be quite so precise, and I'll show you why in a moment, because we're not going to be stitching the same way. So we got plenty of lines there. Let me get this back on the frame. This one, when I showed it to my class, they said, "Oh, it's chicken wire." And it really does look a lot like chicken wire. We're going to think about filling that with chicken wire. There are 2 ways to do this stitch. And one is where the legs that come down here sit side by side. The other way is to do them so they twist. Now, if you really want it to look like chicken wire, you're going to do it so that it twists. But we're going to start off with it just doing the overlapped version, just to keep things simple and get us on track. This is where my pen comes in handy again. If I'm going to put a little leg here, I'm going to go diagonal here, and I need a leg here. Except this leg's going to go both. And technically, this one would come up all the way up here. So it's going to come here and down. So we're going to start with that and work all the way across. I'm actually going to put a little tiny catch stitch in right here. And that's just for starting it off. And now I'm going to come down here, coming down 2 lines, not one. I'm going to go through that catch, and that's going to catch and help give me that angle. Now we're going to come up here, so I'm actually coming up 2 lines above, so it's actually 1, 2, 3 lines, and I don't have a line drawn in over here, but that's okay. We're going to pretend it's there and eyeball it. Again, you can bring it down straight and see where you're going to go. And now we're going to come down 3 lines, over 1 and down 3, and we're going to come back up 2. So we're stitching the whole side in one go there. Now we're going to come over up 3. Again, we're eyeballing and pretending we know where that line is. We're going to come down 2. So it's going to be just the same way. So you can kind of look and see where you need to go based on what you've already done. Come up 2. So your diagonal is only coming down 1 space. And we're going to come up to that imaginary line that we didn't draw up there, and down 2 to come up. See, we're just 1 space here, but we're 2 spaces there. Now down 3 and over 1, and we're going to come up 2. And then we're going to come up to our imaginary line that I didn't draw in, and come down 2. So always going over 1 space, but on this one we're going upward down 3, and coming back 2, and that's putting us right on that seam. I'm going to just carry this one out. See my dot over here? I'm going to come out in the middle here, and I am going to make a knot. Now, I tried stitching this one before, going both directions, and I was not happy at all with how it turned out. If you try something and it's not working, then you know that you need to change what you're doing and try it a different way. And I definitely prefer, when I'm layering these stitches this way, to always work from the same side. And when you're doing a filling stitch like this, that's kind of a pain because you're having to restart every time. Now we're on the next row. Where are we going to start? On this one, I need a little catch stitch here where that stitch is going to turn. And I kind of want to go off the direction that I think that stitch would be coming from. So we're going up 2. We're going to come back through that catch stitch. So now we have 2 stitches side by side. There's one space, which will be our diagonal, and then 1, 2, right there on that line, at that intersection. And all right, hold that up. We're going to come back 2. There we go. And now we're going to come up here and we're going to go right next to the top of that. We're going to stay on the left side. Now we're going to come back down to the bottom of that. I want to come straight. I liked this one better when we have a slight gap between those 2 stitches. Now we're going to come over 1. There's down 1, down 3. Hold it up straight. Come up just inside there. And now we're going to go down just to the left of that one. Come back up at the bottom of it, but over to the side ever so slightly so that we maintain that little gap. Now there's our diagonal, and down 2 from that. And we're going to come back up on 2. Catch that. Now we're going to go down to the left, come up 2 below, go down 3 down, 1 over, and come up 2. So once you get going with this one, it's actually pretty straightforward and easy because we're just copying what's already there. Now we're out in my seam allowance here. There's my space. I'm going to go ahead and come out that way. And because we finished one row, I'm going to turn it over, make a knot, and then we'll come back for the next row. So now we're ready on the next one. So again, this one is going to come down here. We're going to go diagonally out here. That's where I need my little catch stitch down here. So I'm going to stitch that first. Just put that in there. And we're going to come down 2 below. And come up through that catch stitch. And now we're going to go down up here to the left of that vertical. And we're going to come down straight below 2 spots. Now we're going to come over. There's my 1 space for the diagonal, and down 2. Pay attention to those lines. Come up. Trying to not stitch through my thread, but come up right at that intersection of my lines. And down. I'm sorry, we're going to go down to the left of that vertical above. Come down there. Now we're about 1 over and 1 down for the diagonal. Come down 2. That actually is putting me out in my seam allowance. Come up 2. Now you can start to see why they were calling it chicken wire. I'm just going to eyeball this one. I'm out in my seam allowance here. I want to follow my pattern through right in here. Because I need this one right here just because we're still going to show some of this above the seam. So down. And then I'm just going to tuck that off over there, and I think that row is good. And let me go to the next one. We're right down here at the end. Let's try that with the alternate variation, the twisted one right down here, just because I think it can be helpful to see that. So I'm going to come up here to the left, just like we've done, but this time I'm going to go under, and I'm going to go from the right and go under that thread and come out and go down, and so it's going to twist it a little bit. Now I'm still going to go diagonal over 1 and down 1, and we're going to go 1, 2, and that puts me right at that seam. Now coming back 2, and the twist version I think is better if you keep things a little on the loose side and if you're using bigger thread. I messed that up. That first one, ignore what I said about the twist on that one. So now is when I need to put it under. So I'm going to go under from right to left. And we're going to go down here to that left. I'm not going to pull things too tight yet. And I want to come back up down there. And so you can sort of see that twist taking place. I feel like it has the impression better when you have the gap. And oops, I'm going in the wrong spot, so I need to come down to, we're out in our seam allowance, I'm not going to come down quite that far. Coming back up there. And again, so you would thread it under from the right. Kind of keep your loop, go down on the left, leaving that gap so that we'll be able to see that twist. And coming back up on the left and catching that thread, and you can kind of see that. And we're just going to go down. And so that finishes that off. You have the 2 different ways that we've done that honeycomb version of chicken wire, all straight and with the twist. So I'm going to make a knot and then we'll take a look at the finished block. Here is our finished block. We have the 2 versions of double Cretan stitch and our 2 versions of honeycomb stitch. The one with hexagons that are fairly consistent. And then we have our chicken wire version with the overlapped long legs, and then we did try it with the twisted leg at the bottom. So you can do that both directions. Once again, I really believe that the key to doing the hexagons and getting the best possible outcome is to take the time to do the math and figure out what the measurements are that you need for the size hexagon that you want to be stitching. And it doesn't have to be exact, but you do want them to be consistent because it makes such a big difference. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this has been helpful for you. I've stitched well into the evening, as you can see by how dark it is behind me. But I think it was absolutely worth taking out all those stitches and redoing it. If you're not happy with something, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think a lot of times we think we have to have it perfect on the first try. I've been stitching for my entire life, and sometimes you just have to take it out and start over again. It's just the way it goes. But I hope you'll have fun with these honeycomb variations. Thanks so much for watching. Have a beautiful day. Happy stitching, and I'll see you in the next video.